Hello everyone, good evening, good Friday evening. And you know what that means? It means that we're on another episode of iTie. Now, what iTie is an abbreviation for Indie Time Interview Edition. And we interview basically indie game developers. But what's different from any other development, any other interview? Well, I wear a tie, that's it. And today, I'm actually wearing the first tie ever that I've wear on the first interview, if I'm not mistaken. So that's a pretty cool one, the Let's Play tie. So hopefully you're ready for today. We got a very, very special guest, and not only is he, it is very exciting to get him, but also he's part of the cloud gaming community, which I'm part of also. So it's very exciting to have a fellow cloud gamer with us. Now, before we introduce our friend, let's go ahead and have a look at the chat. So we have the Climax, the boy Suave. Welcome, my friend, all the way to from Texas, if I'm not mistaken. Hopefully I'm right here. We've got SPG, Simply Pond Gaming. Oh snap! Looking forward to this. Oh yeah, happy to see you here, SPG, and hope you enjoyed the show. We've got Jesse Gaming 93. Hello, my friend, and welcome to the stream. You've been very active lately, and I really appreciate that. We've got It's Just Joe. Says, let's go. Oh yeah, we'll be seeing a lot more of this mysterious person very soon. Got Lo-Fi Monk. Hey Ninja Guy. Hey Lo-Fi, welcome to the stream. Now Lo-Fi has come a long way since since the cloud gaming community has started. Like he's so much he's put on so much work in his content. It's crazy. Have a look at this guy. He's pretty good. We got CGTV. Yo, welcome my friend. We've got Rudigs. Hello my friend from Toronto, Canada. Welcome. Speaking of Toronto, Canada, we've got Four Scars Gaming. Hello my friend John. Hope you're enjoying your Friday evening. And we're here to have an awesome interview. Then we've got the Rock from Rock Show, Rock Players as a co-guest sometimes. So welcome Rock, and hope you enjoyed the show. Man, so many cool people here. Thank you so much for coming in. All right, let's go ahead and it's time to introduce our good friend, the one, the only, It's Just Joe, from the creator of Forsaking Fortress. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great, thank you. We had a nice conversation before the show, learned already a lot about the game, and hopefully we'll have time to talk about everything that we talked pre-show, but if not, I'm sure you'll have some stream, to talk about it. So that's going to be awesome. So yeah, let's go ahead and start with the interview. So Joe, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
So I'm Joe. It's just Joe over here on YouTube, and I like creating gaming content, and I'm an aspiring indie game developer. Something new I've gotten into recently. Had a little bit of experience in the indie game world, but Forsaken Fortress will be my first large commercial release. Is the way I would put it.
Very nice. And for the people who is not aware, we'll be learning a lot about the game today. So stay tuned for sure. So can you tell us your history? How you start getting into video game as a kid up until how you started developing video games.
For sure. So I was always kind of into video games as a young kid. I was never like one like platform specific. I wasn't like a huge like PS or Xbox guy or whatever. Like I remember as a young kid having a Nintendo, like the OG or original Nintendo type situation. Played it with my younger brothers and that thing. And I owned an Xbox 360 at one point. But then later on in life, after university and stuff, I joined the military. And I kind of fell out of gaming for quite some time. Just being in the army and that type of thing, I kept pretty busy. But towards the middle of my army career, I was kind of brought back towards gaming. At the time we were in Iraq, and
Wow.
when we had some downtime, we had a whole bunch of Xboxes networked together on like a local network.
Oh my
So
gosh.
so we could play like Call of Duty, it's the middle of the desert. There's not a lot to do.
Yeah.
But you'd be surprised, you get some soldiers with some ingenuity, and they'll find a way to have a good time. So that kind of reintroduced me to gaming. Then I got older, married, kids, that type of thing. And now at this point in my life, it's more of a convenience. Like I don't own a console. I haven't owned a console since the start of Stadia.
Wow.
Because it just wasn't convenient for me, finding all my kids are really young. So finding time where I could really sit down and really dive in and immerse myself in the games that like I really enjoy and take over the TV and, where everybody wants to be watching, SpongeBob or, whatever the case may be. It just wasn't in the cards for me. So really, cloud gaming was an opportunity of convenience. And as would have it, one of my soldiers used his army education benefits to actually go to college for game design. So that was my first kind of introduction to game development. I was like, "You're going to college for what? Explain this to me." And this was probably like circa 2015.
Okay.
So good like 7 years ago.
Yeah.
So like it still wasn't as indie game development wasn't as popular or big as it is today. So it was really interesting having a soldier do that. And he's the one that introduced me to Unity. I worked on a few mobile games, that type of thing. We did an AR game in support of army recruiting. So it was very similar to like a Pokemon Go, but it was like a virtual grenade range where you were throwing, grenades in an AR environment. And then, here recently decided to dive back into it and, started working on what is now the Forsaken Fortress.
Interesting. So yeah, there's a good history in that. It's crazy how, you're self-taught and, everything we're seeing is basically just from learning it. No piece of paper that tells you that you're a game developer, right? It's just like all independent. Right. It's pretty amazing. Right. So here I have like a very unique question because I'm I've seen some screenshot and we'll be sharing them very soon. But I want to know, what are your strengths in your game development cycle?
So I would say my strengths are, I'm going to say I probably have three strengths. I'm super creative. Like my first degree before I joined the army, I got my degree in television production. So I worked in like the TV world with the ESPN and the Food Network and like that type of stuff behind the camera. So like video editing and producing stuff for television, like creating something from nothing. I definitely think that's a strength. I also just like learning new stuff. Like I used some of my army education money to take some computer science classes to learn some coding, which helps in the game development stuff. Not because I want to like be a software developer by any means, but just because I was interested in like what it takes to develop software.
Yep.
So I'd say my curiosity for learning and my like overall passion for just like creating stuff, whatever
Yeah.
that is.
That's like the perfect formula, for game development. So
Yeah.
that's something that I always envy from you developers. Is just that the creativity is the one thing that I lack in all of this. Like I do program software development and all of that, but just the creativity that I don't have. So that is something I really like hearing that from you guys and learning how creative you guys are.
For sure.
All right, so now we've learned a lot about Joe. Now it's time to learn about the game that he's been working on. Actually, no, sorry. I actually have more questions, but not about you. It's about... so before we talk about Forsaken Fortress, you were previously working on a project exclusive to cloud gaming. This is where we started to hear about your development career. Can you talk about what that project was, and if you transitioned it to Forsaken Fortress, or if it was something completely different?
I would say that was probably Forsaken Fortress in its infancy. Just the initial idea. I saw other indie developers, smaller teams having success on like the Stadia platform, having success with the Stadia community and really rallying behind games, whether it was games like something even like Lumote, it's a husband and wife team, or there's a bunch of games out there. A bunch of them escape me at the moment, but it was really just because that's in my research experience, that type of thing. That's what's going to make or break your game. Is there a community behind it? How many people are going to wishlist it? How many people are going to review it? How many people are going to share your game? All those things play into it. And right at that time when I made that decision, it was like within months, like
oh my gosh.
I think it was 45 days from when I
wow.
like dove in and was like, hey, I'm going to make this game for Stadia. Yeah. And I believe it was like 45 days later they announced the closing.
Oh my gosh, that is so bad. Yeah. And you were getting a lot of traction toward it, right? Like people were really interested and getting to that, and bam, it just closed. So during that time, something that I was finding really interesting is that you mentioned that you would collaborate with the cloud gaming community. So during that time specifically, what kind of collaboration you were looking to make with this?
So really, for me, I went into this, and I've said this from day one, for me, it's always been a passion project. Whether it makes $1 or $5 or no dollars, it doesn't, I could care less. It's really, I just want to be able to say, hey, I made a game from scratch and I actually published it. It's actually out there, because a lot of folks will, especially solo devs, will start their indie game journey and never release anything, publicly, that happens to a lot of folks. So I really wanted to get the community involved, but not with all like the ties of like a Kickstarter, GoFundMe, Indiegogo, give me $7 to do XYZ. It was just like, hey, if you want to voice a character in the game, reach out to me. You can voice a character in the game. Because it's one less thing. The way I looked at it as a solo developer, it's one less thing I have to do.
Right, it helps you. Yeah, in a way. Yeah.
Yeah, to be honest, because, if I want to do like voiceover even now for Forsaken Fortress, like I'm going to be there doing all the voices, or like, bugging my wife to do voices for characters and things.
Your kids.
My kids, whatever it is, where it's a lot easier to just, plug the community and say, hey, do you want to create an NPC for my game? Like you can totally do that. That is totally plausible. It's really easy. I did a live stream walking folks through how they could do that. I mean, they could do that right now there for free, and it won't cost them anything besides some time.
Nice. That is awesome. And we'll talk about this a little bit more also, because so basically you were doing that for the cloud gaming, but you're like still okay with doing some more partnership with the community. So I really want to learn more about that.
For sure.
Now there's something that I'm kind of like thinking on top of my head that I completely forgot to put in there. So back during the Stadia community, you started creating like a brand of clothing and accessories and all of that. What happened with that? Do you still have like a store that you sell products, or is that gone?
So I closed the merch store when Stadia was announced their closing.
Okay.
That they were closing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I had a line of like esports jerseys. A bunch of folks picked them up, which is awesome because to be honest, that was like the initial um, financial jumping off point for
Ah.
my game. To be frank, because I've
Yeah.
invested quite a bit of money at this time into the game. So that was kind of the initial push for like, hey, I got some liquid cash sitting around. Let's build a game. Why not?
Nice. Yeah, it was a good opportunity for sure.
Hmm.
It's sad to go. Hopefully, you'll get to maybe do merch for Forsaken Fortress at some point, or some more merch. I'd like to see that.
Yeah,
Um,
for
all
sure.
right, now it's actually time to talk about your game. So the game is called Forsaken Fortress: Realm of the Ancients. Very mysterious. So looking at screenshots, it's really hard to believe that this game was created by just one solo indie developer, which is yourself. Can you give us like a summary? Just tell us a little bit about the game.
At its core I would categorize it as like an action RPG, right? So that's the game at its core. It's an action
Mm,
RPG. So it's a typical kind of hero story, save the day, fight the monsters, save the realm. Where I think it will differ is a lot of the game mechanics, right? So instead of, for example, one game mechanic that is almost 100% fleshed out at this point, rather than having like a character creator where you pick like I'm going to be a mage or I'm going to be a warrior or whatever, you're going to just start as a class. And then as you journey and venture and explore the world, it'll be up to you whether you recruit other folks to kind of be on your team. And at that time, you'll be prompted to change your class if you so choose to. So you'll
nice.
basically go from being like, you're playing, let's say, a warrior character,
Mm,
and you meet a mage, for example, and it'll say, do you want to, now be the mage instead of the warrior? But
yeah,
once you make that decision, you can't go back.
that is awesome. So you know what that reminds me? Well, I mean, you can go back in that one, but it reminds me of Final Fantasy 3 on the Nintendo because you start as an onion knight. You're just basically like a
Hmm.
peasant, and
Yep.
then you can like decide to change your classes and stuff like that. But the fact that you can't go back, that's kind of interesting. You'll have to like make like a cautious decision whenever you change your class. I like that. I like the way this is
So
going.
a big thing I wanted to focus on with the game. So right now, all the quests for the game are already written. The main storylines are already written for the game. And currently, as it stands right now today, the game actually has about half a dozen different endings,
Oh wow.
depending on the decisions you make in your gameplay.
Okay.
So, like
Okay.
there's like inspiration in there from something like like Fable, like
Ah.
how the world perceives you based on the decisions you make. Do you help find the lost kid or not? And then how the town reacts to you based on like, are you perceived as good or perceived as bad?
Hmm.
Um, and that'll determine a lot of the gameplay. And it's a feature I really wanted that I've spent a lot of time working on for the replayability factor, because I see
Yeah.
a lot of indie games they'll initially do really well and people will play them. There's a lot of interest, but like once they beat it, they beat it. Or once they get all the Steam achievements, they get all the Steam achievements. There's no reason to go back.
Yeah.
With this, there's definitely a reason to go back, because what if you choose to be the mage, and what if you choose like the little bit more nefarious path? How does that affect the rest of the gameplay and the outcome of the game?
Man, I still like every time you say something about the game, I just can't believe that you're doing this alone. It feels like it's so much work, but maybe after these questions, we can talk about what kind of tricks you've used, right, to make this happen alone. So that's the thing. So, guys, if you haven't seen the game, well, Joe actually shared me some pictures, and if you don't mind, Joe, we'll go ahead and go through these pictures, and maybe you can explain a little bit more about the game, about the world, why it looks like that way, and the main character and all of that.
For sure.
Awesome. Let me just transition here like that, and there you go. So in this picture, we have like a vast open world, very nice looking, with a castle.
Yep. So the world itself, as it stands, which doesn't seem that large for an open world game, but in reality, it's actually 1 square mile.
Oh
The
my
game
gosh.
itself is 1 square mile, which for like a solo developer, I'm pretty excited about that. I'll take the W. I'll take the win on that one. Um, So yeah, the world itself is 1 square mile. It is an open world. Besides jumping off the edge of the map per se, there's as long as you can physically get there, there's nowhere you cannot go.
Oh wow, interesting. I like that. So basically, I mean, it's not as big as Skyrim, but it's very it's very cool.
Right.
Yeah.
It's definitely not as big as Skyrim, but like the big thing I wanted with the game when working on the game is I didn't want it a linear story.
Oh yeah.
I wanted the
Nice.
player to kind of choose, like, am I going to go here, there, the next place, whatever, and really have to explore the world and reward the player for doing so. So they don't have to kind of play it as linear as a lot of games are. Where it gives them the freedom to explore, and they could go, oh, I went to this village and found thing X, versus like just going back to the castle. Maybe that's the first place they go. Is that a bad decision? Is it a good decision? They'll have to wait and find out.
Yeah, exactly. Here we got SPD saying that Joe is a genius. I think he's right. Like, yeah, like this decision making into that. And now that I think about it, this is like super up SPG's alley. These types of games. So I think you definitely got his attention.
Yeah.
Let's give him some more attention. Let's look at this one. So this one is a castle with a nice bridge. I really like the layout of that.
Yep. So in the game itself, another thing that I'm fairly proud of is there's a dynamic like night-day cycle. So like the time of day changes as you're playing the game, but there's also dynamic weather in the game. So like when a storm rolls in, you see the thunder and lightning. The lighting changes. There's actual rain. It sounds like rain. So there's dynamic weather throughout the world. That could be a snowstorm. It could be rain. It might be a sandstorm. It could be the dynamic audio that changes from early in the morning to mid-afternoon to late in the evening.
Wow.
So I've spent a lot of time on the kind of atmosphere and environment of the game.
Cool. I like that. Man, I remember back like in 2000 when Shemnu came out, dynamic weather was like a new thing and it cost them millions to do. So again, pretty amazing to see this.
Yeah, for sure.
Next up, we've got, it looks like this is our main character on the bridge, right?
Yep. So the main character, you're going to kind of start out as a knight, and like I said, story premise is kind of darkness is fallen over the realm, and you kind of have to rally up to save the realm per se. How long you are the knight or how long you choose to play as the knight will all depend on the player. And they'll have a unique experience depending on the decisions they make within the game.
Interesting. Yeah, looking forward to see what kind of class we'll see. If there's a jester class, I want to be the jester class. We'll see. We'll see if that happens.
Excellent.
Yeah. Here we have the protagonist again, but this time around in a village.
Yep. So the one thing that I enjoy about a lot of games, but has also for me kind of been a point of contention with a lot of other RPG games, is like in reality they stuff so much into a game versus what it would really be like. It wouldn't be like village on top of village on top of village. There would be long treks of terrain where you may come across animals or bandits or whatever. It just wouldn't be so much stuffed into the game. So the villages in the game are fairly small. It might be half a dozen houses or so in each village, but they do vary. So there may be a village that maybe is a little bit of a lower class village, so it's more like a tent city. Versus something like this where it's all wooden houses. There may be a village in the mountains where it's all stone houses. And maybe it's a much smaller group of people because they're living in a harsher environment. So you're not going to have a huge populace living, on top of a mountain per se, where it's really hard to make it up there.
Yeah, and it makes sense, I guess, like just small populations here and there on smaller village, and then there's the big castle, right, where like this is like the city, right? So that makes a lot of sense. I like that. Also, and SPG is probably going to like be opposed to what I say now, but I like when it's smaller in that because I can, I don't have a lot of time to play games, and it just gives me the time to explore everything compared to these big worlds where I just don't have time to like go everywhere and figure out everything. So I like where,
right. So So the game started at one point. It was probably about 4 times the world was about 4 times the size. And
Okay.
what I did in playtesting is I literally started a timer and I walked from one end of the world to the other. It was like, there is no way. Like, unless I start putting in like horse and buggies and all sorts of other
Yeah.
transportation type mechanics, like this is just way too much. It took me 90 minutes to walk from, like one end to the other.
Yeah.
Like, it's just not going to happen if I've got the player going all over the place for quests and stories and things. So that iteration, I had to downsize my world to about the 1 square mile, which works.
Maybe what you can do is do like Dragon Quest. I'm going to spoil it, but it's an 80s game, so it doesn't matter. So in Dragon Quest 2, basically they got the world, but they expanded the same world to more stuff. So, if there's a sequel, you could keep that world and just, expand another section of the game. That would be pretty cool.
Yep.
Next up, we got another nice vast terrain with some pretty big mountains. Can you climb them?
Yes, to a degree. So there's obviously when making a player controller, you have to define like what angle the player can climb and what angle they can't. Yeah. So it'll get to a point where like a player can't, like you physically can't do it. But it was important for me when making the world that I didn't want to just put like an invisible wall there, an invisible collider so the player can't go out the map. No, I'm just going to make the geometry of the world as such where like the player wouldn't be able to leave the map per se.
Okay.
Type situation. So it is very mountainous kind of around the outskirts or most of the outer skirts of the map. There is one section that does have some water on like the lower corner, eastern corner of the map.
Okay.
But if you go, you're going to like drift off into the ocean if you go into the water. So no problems there.
There you go. Well, that's a good, a good way to make the player turn around. There's nothing else there, so why not?
For sure.
All right, guys, we're on the last image. So are you ready for this? Let's do it. There's a knight ready for battle.
Yeah. There it is. So, I thought it was important when building out the characters and kind of building out the different things is having a lot of kind of those classic imagery type characters that you think of when it comes to a game that's in like kind of a darker medieval type setting. So you're going to see knights and there's going to be orcs and there's going to be mages and there's going to be trolls and things of that nature.
Wow.
In the game, and those are the folks that you're going to run across. And there may be a few unexpected kind of character archetypes in there as well.
Nice. This is asking a question here. He says, can I Oblivion jump button spam up a mountain?
So right now, in the current games forum, you cannot necessarily move that much while jumping, like in air. So like you can jump forward, but you can't continuously jump forward. So that's one of the other things I spent a lot of time on in the iterations, not only the world building, was the player controller and getting it to feel right as far as like how fast a player moves, what the animations look like, is it too fast, too slow, etc. Because personally, in my experience, I feel for a lot of gameplay that makes or breaks it. How when you have the controller in your hand and you tell it to jump, what does that look like? How does that feel?
Yeah.
So I spent quite a bit of time on not only the world building, but the actual player controls themselves.
Okay, that's pretty cool. The animation kind of, when you jump, you want to feel it as human as possible. I really like that.
Yep.
All right, so there we have it, guys. These are all the screenshots we have. But, I'm sure you guys want more. So we got more question here for, knowing if he's going to have more like a video coming up or anything. We'll see. All right, let's jump back into the questions here. So okay, something that I was really curious of and I really wanted to ask that. So the game Forsaken Fortress has a subtitle. It says Realm of the Ancients. So does that mean that you plan on doing a series of this world? Like, do you plan on doing other games with other subtitles, or what was the reason to put a subtitle?
The intent, it was very intentional, right? So once again, it goes back to like the longevity and replayability of the game. So not only is, a player going to have various choices they can make, which will determine the outcome of the game, but I anticipate after the game's full release, probably within 6 months, releasing DLC for the game. So additional content where you can explore more of the world,
Oh my gosh.
just to continue the life of the game, right? Because I want to get really good at making, kind of explorative RPG games. I mean, that's it. I could make, a first-person shooter, an explorative RPG game, and Game X and Game Y and Game Z, and then I'll be like jack of all trade games guy. But I would rather focus on, because at the end of the day, I formed a legit LLC to do it for tax purposes and to claim the purchases and the new computer I bought and like all that stuff. So if I'm really going to invest like the time and effort into what is now a hobby, but hopefully one day could be a job
Oh
per
yeah.
se,
Yeah.
I would rather focus on kind of one genre. Now that may be different time periods. Maybe in the future there's a action RPG, but maybe it's a Western themed situation, versus a medieval theme type situation.
Nice.
But I intend on at least releasing one planned right now DLC for Forsaken Fortress.
Okay, I was about to ask though if it was going to be like a very long expanding world with a lot of DLC. So we could see just one DLC and then jump onto another other project, or
Yep.
if Realm of the Ancient for some reason really booms, then maybe you'll do more DLCs or things like
For
that.
sure.
Ah,
Sure. Because I always thought it'd be really interesting. I always thought an interesting DLC or mechanic would be that you play, you start the game as the protagonist and you kind of play through that game, but then release a DLC that flips it on its head where you're playing as the villain.
oh my gosh, yeah, that would be awesome. Then you learn the story, but on the villain side. I love that.
On the opposite end, yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
I really really like that. That's a really good idea. So CGTV is aware, that you're very open at your on your development, right? You got development streams, and you pretty much explain everything that you do. And he has a question here for you. He's asking, how easy is it for a noob to pick up Unity and build a game?
That depends on your definition of a game, number one. Number two, with all the resources out there, it's relatively easy. Anyone could build a game. It really depends on, are you going to financially invest in some tools, in some artwork, in some, like I paid for the licensing for music for this game. I paid for some tools to kind of help with the world creation and generation and placing trees and all that stuff, so I didn't have to place each pine tree. So for a new person, yeah, you could pick up a game, and I would say probably within reasonably from like no Unity knowledge, within 18 to 24 months, you could have a game.
Oh wow, that's pretty amazing. It also depends, I guess, on how patient you are, how creative you are, right? But yeah, the money. I mean, the spending money is really one of the things you need to do if you want to have something different from other places. Because if you use like the tools that are included, you'll see a lot of games that are very similar just because they're all using the same kind of assets, right?
Right, but if you get creative, for example, I'm sure we're going to talk about it. I recently participated in like a game jam, and everything that I was putting into that game for the game jam was a free asset.
Oh,
all I did was change the textures,
okay.
so they looked different.
Oh my gosh.
That's it. So it's not like it was a free model that someone designed, and then I took the texture and like crunched it down, so it kind of had that like low polygon type thing, and it didn't look like this 4K, mountain. It looked like a crunchy polygon mountain per se. So there's little tricks like that you just kind of learn along the way. That you could take something, you could build a game with 100% free assets. In fact, an indie game I really enjoy, for the most part, was built with free assets. A lot of it is free assets.
That's amazing. I didn't know that. And these are, like you said, these are just little tricks you learn with by working in it. So that's good to know. I really thought that every game that looked the same was just because they had free assets, but it's just because they just don't. I guess they just don't take the time to to look into these type of tricks, basically.
Right, because it's so much easier just to pull an acid in, leave it as is, and say, okay, great, it's good.
Yeah.
Versus like pulling something in and taking the time and saying, okay, like how can I change this and make it my own?
Yeah. So the climax also have an interesting question here. So the game is not completed, but for one playthrough, what do you aim? How much time do you think do you want a game, one playthrough to last, basically, for your game? If if you
be honest, that's all going to depend on the player.
Yeah.
Because where it is so open world and up to the decisions you make. I mean, you could go try to find the strongest weapon, the strongest armor, and just run to the end and see what happens.
Yeah.
It probably will not go well for you, would be my guess, but maybe it will. Who knows? Maybe someone will surprise me. Versus if you're someone that really wants to get immersed in the story and explore, I will say that the game is being built in a way where it is going to reward players for exploring.
Nice.
You will benefit from exploring the world and venturing off the beaten path, quote unquote. And the reason being, those are the types of games I enjoy. So I've found working on this project, if I'm building the game that I want to build, regardless of anyone else's opinion or whatever, and I'm building the type of stuff that I normally enjoy, that it's a lot less burnout,
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mentioned that in a previous interview. I mentioned that I'm in the middle of speed running, but also enjoying the story. I like to play a game, but I don't like to talk to every single NPC and learn about everything, right? I just want to learn about the main story and go. So it's gonna be interesting to see how long it takes for every person to finish the game. We've got one more question here. I just saw that dog's message there, but Climax is asking, will you be looking to have people to test out the game before the official release?
Yep. So the timeline, which I'm sure we'll get to here, but we'll dive some more into the timeline. There is going to be a demo that folks can play and provide some feedback on. That all kind of coincides with the Steam page and that type of stuff. But I will be looking for a handful of folks to kind of test it and give some feedback for sure.
Awesome. That's good to know. So during the time that before the interview, I've learned a few things. I've did some research. I've creeped you on Twitter. I creeped you everywhere. So I've learned a few things, of the game. So the first, I hope you don't think I've I reached your personal space, but we'll see.
No.
So the size of your trousers, and no, just kidding. Right. So the first thing is you're looking for the community to contribute to your new game. Can you tell us a little bit about this? How can people get a hold of you to contribute, the first thing, and what kind of contribution can they do?
I mean, I'm open to whatever, if there's people out there that have skill sets, play an instrument or whatever the case may be, and you're willing to donate some time and resources to, write me a tune. Awesome. Let's talk. But really what I was looking for folks to do was create NPCs. Right. So there's a free software on the Steam store. Shaders can go a long way for sure. There's a free software on the Steam store. It's called Mixamo Fuse. So it's actually a discontinued Adobe product. And basically it's a character creator. So you can pull in a head and pull in a torso and arms and legs, and then you can tweak all the values to make their arms bigger, smaller, all that type of stuff. Once you create your character, you can just save that single file, and all you got to do is send me that single file. I'll take care of animating it, putting it in the game. Will it be someone you talk to? Will it be a background character? Will it be a character that you could potentially play? You won't know unless you buy the game and try it.
Ooh, interesting. I like the sound of that. And where can people reach you if they want to do something like that?
So you can hit me up on social media, but if you go to itsjustjoe.live, that's the website. There's a contact form on there. It's got my YouTube link, my Steam link, my Twitter link. All my information is on itsjustjoe.live.
Perfect. So I've got Joe's Twitter on my description on this video, and I also have the itsjustjoe.live URL. So if you want to, quickly get a hold of him, it's right there. And he'll get in touch with you for sure.
Sure.
All right. So the second thing I've learned is that you're currently working on a Steam page sometime soon. So when should we expect the page to go live?
Well, some of that is going to depend on Valve. I think I will have everything done on my end in like 2 weeks, because this has been part of the learning curve. That you essentially set up your Steam page, and then it goes to Valve, and they like say yay or nay, and you got to make some changes or whatever the case may be, and then your page will go live. In their documentation, they recommend from the day you submit to the page going live, they recommend like a 30-day window. Is it going to take 30 days? I doubt it, but I will have everything submitted to Valve in the next 2 weeks.
Ooh, nice.
Because basically all that entails is all the text associated with that, description, a targeted price point. I personally want to have the playable demo ready for the Steam page, a trailer, screenshots, all that good stuff, so folks can go on, check it out, start wish listing it, all that good stuff, because that'll really help in the future.
Nice. I like that. All right, the last thing that I've learned, I'm leaking some stuff for you guys there. So I've learned, so you pretty much mentioned it, but I've learned that you're working on making a trailer for the game. So what are you looking to put in the trailer? What should we expect from that trailer?
So with the trailer, I want to give the players kind of a feel for like the world that they'll be playing in, but also some of like the action, type stuff. I'm going to steal something from when I worked in kind of the newsy television realm. And the running joke was for television news is if it bleeds, it leads. Like if you watch the news, it's usually the worst story. It's like top of the hour, house fire, whatever, so it'll be a lot of action. It's going to lead with action. It's going to be less about It's Just Joe. It's going to be less about the company and more about the game and the gameplay. And
Nice.
That's really what we're going to focus on. So some of the atmosphere, some of the mystery and kind of story aspects, you're going to get to see some of kind of the villains and things that you may come across, that type of thing, in the trailer itself. And that, like I said, hopefully I should have all that submitted to Steam, and I'm targeting the next 2 weeks.
Nice. Everything it will be done in 2 weeks. The demo, the trailer, right. The Steam page, everything. So
that's the plan. Well, it'll be submitted to Valve. Now, How long they take to put it live, will depend. But I'll have everything I need to have submitted to Valve to have like the coming soon Steam page.
That's amazing. I love seeing progress, and we'll be seeing some pretty soon. So I'll definitely take the time and read everything from the descriptions, and I want to learn about the game for sure. So that's going to be cool. So your streaming content has changed recently. You've made a little bit of change. You're currently mostly focused on to show your development stuff. So can you tell us what your schedule looks like at the moment for your streaming content?
My schedule is challenging, but my schedule moving forward is probably on the regular starting next week. It's still going to be live streams on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. And then I'm looking to drop recorded content on Tuesdays.
Okay.
That's going to be my plan. It'll be Wednesday live stream, Tuesday recorded content, like 9 a.m. Eastern time. Focused on primarily game dev stuff. I probably will be doing some gameplays. Those will probably just kind of be at random here and there, because I'm really trying to create more than I consume at this point.
Okay.
Just because it was getting, to be frank, it was getting in the way of creating the game.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So playing this game or that game, or checking out this service or that service or the next one, and I was like, man, I haven't worked on my game in a week and a half. This is a problem. So I said, you know what? If I pivot my channel to be, to help people that are kind of new to Unity and game development, and talk about things not only from developing the game, but like the stuff I didn't consider when choosing to release my game on Steam.
Yeah.
Like building a game's one thing, but then when you want to look at integrating, okay, cool, I want to integrate Steam achievements into the game. Like that's a whole other case of worms that you gotta unbox and figure out and pull in their API and like do all the things, it's a whole other involved process. I mean, all the Steam integration stuff is going to be a whole other kind of development cycle
Oh yeah.
for the game, really.
Yeah, yeah, like it's for for a single indie developer, it's tough because you have to have a trade in everything. The marketing is going to be a tough one, also, like just putting all like the thumbnails and the media kits and all of that. So it just never stops. So
Yeah. No, I mean, I got
yeah.
I got very educated very quickly on press kits and what can I write off for business taxes and oh man, the Steam achievements and Steam cloud saves and all that isn't as easy as it looks on the outside, and the process of giving folks maybe like free game keys when the
Mhm.
game does officially drop, to get kind of the word out there and spread the word and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it is a constant kind of evolving learning process for sure.
Yeah, you can even pay people, to play your game. So it all depends,
Right. Yeah.
like you said, how much money you want to put into that.
For sure.
It's funny that you say that you play games and that didn't help with the development. Gem Bear Gaming is in the same situation as you. He's working, like, he got his game out, Pixelmancer, and
Yep.
he's working on another chapter of his game, but he admitted that, like, he's slacking because he's addicted to playing Warframe right now. So it's kind of funny that he says that, but it kind of reminded me of that when you said it. But
Well,
yeah.
because I think it's important to play. Me from a developer standpoint, I think it's important to play a variety of games and different games. Because you might see a mechanic in game A, game B, game C, and you're like, cool, how can I take all three of these mechanics and put it into what I'm working on or whatever, type situation. So I think from a creativity standpoint, it's important.
Yeah.
But being a one man band, time is the most valuable commodity I have.
Yeah, for sure. And it's actually a question I want to ask on Twitter about for every indie devs. I want to ask them how much time they spend on gaming versus how much time they spend on developing, right? Because it's different for everybody. Like, some people I've talked to, they just stop gaming completely because they're just focusing so much on their game that they just stop gaming it completely. So it depends on how you want to develop your game, in a way.
Sure.
So just a quick question, where can people find you on YouTube? I don't have that link on my description, but
youtube.com/@itsjustjoe.
Perfect. Here you go. And keep a lookout, guys. If you're interested in seeing, like, just a developer developing his game, it's pretty cool. I've seen a few times Joe developing, and it's really interesting. So, speaking of development, you've recently worked on getting an entry on Ludum Dare's Game Jam. So,
Yes.
how was your entry? How was your journey towards that, and what kind of result came out of it?
So it was good. So I needed a break from the game. I needed to do something different, just kind of change, clear my head, change gears type situation. That's why I said, oh, they're doing a Ludum Dare 52. I'll jump in. And for anyone that doesn't know, they basically give you a like a genre, and you have to create a game around that in 72 hours is what they do. So the genre was Harvest, and you had 3 days to do it. Unfortunately, due to some regular life getting in the way, I didn't meet the deadline in 3 days, which is fine. However, what the product that will come out of it is an atmospheric kind of first person exploration game. Kind of low poly. Oh, thank you for dropping that in chat. I appreciate that. And I'm going to release that on itch.io, so it'll be free. I got to finish a few things with it, do some of the voiceovers, but I mean, that's about all I got left to do on it. All the atmosphere is done. All, like, the little waypoints you have to find to kind of unlock your way out of the world is done. All my enemy AI is done.
Cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much just voiceovers and throwing some menus on it, and it'll be good to go. I'll be putting it for free on itch.io, and I'll be tweeting about it. I'm sure I will do a live stream about it, kind of talking about my experience. It was great. It was a nice change of pace to kind of do something else and do something different on a much smaller scale. That was, like, way simpler mechanics and things. And then, some of my kids just got sick, and I just couldn't meet the deadline. That is what it is.
Yeah, it is. Did that give you a boost in views? Like did you get a lot of followers after that, or a lot of more people following you uh, after the game, Jane?
So my biggest challenge for me, and it's something I'm hoping to rectify in 2023, is my consistency with my channel.
Okay. Yeah.
And being consistent with my time slots and things like that, and that's why I'm trying to moving forward not necessarily overcommit to what
Yeah.
five streams a week and whatever. At one point in time when I saw my best growth, I was probably streaming like 3 days a week.
Oh wow. Okay.
Which was great, but like I just probably don't have the bandwidth to do that and publish the game that I want to publish. Because
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
ultimately, I mean, financially, I'm vested at this point, in this project. So I want it to be, what I envision.
There's no going back.
Right, for sure.
So you've mentioned a few times that you've put money in the game. Now, is there any way for us, for people who wants to play the game, is there any way that we can support you at the moment? Do you have any kind of place where we can donate or anything like that?
So right now I do not. I've thought about that. I've wrestled with that idea a lot. I did want to make it kind of a self-funded, because like I said, it is a passion project for me, and I'm going to make the game regardless. To be honest, the best way you could support the game is, when that Steam page is live, wish listing the game, when you can purchase the game if you financially can do so, and then review the game, because I've spent a lot of time like researching on what can make or break a game on Steam, right? And like the amount of wish list you have for your game directly correlates to when your game launches, is it going to be featured on the Steam front page?
Yeah, that's important. Yeah.
Which is super important. The amount of review, you could correlate how well financially a game's going to do based on like the amount of reviews it has. There's a model you can use to figure out, okay, the game's got 100 reviews and it sells for $6.99. This is probably about where you're going to be. So I will know, am I going to break even? Because honestly, if I break even, I'll be thrilled. If I do anything more than break even, then hey, that's great. But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I want to, be able to say I published a game by myself.
Exactly.
I'm really doing it for the resume bullet per se. Because this won't be the last game I publish. Will be my first big game I publish, and then that's that. So
imagine that, Joe. Imagine at some point you have a game physically made, like you can hold your game in your hand. That would be amazing. I really hope that happens to you.
Well, right. Like an indie developer I really look up to, and an indie game that I really enjoy is The Last Tree.
Okay.
So I don't know if anyone's played it, but it's a solo developer game. And it did bananas on Steam, and eventually got picked up by a publisher.
You
can buy it for the Switch. You can buy, and like he did a live stream of like opening the box and like holding. I was just mentioning this to my wife last night. I go, wouldn't that be so surreal? Like just holding like your game in your hands, like that you made in the office, at your house.
Yeah.
And that would just be super surreal, and I would be head over heels if the game did that well.
Yeah.
Realistically, I would love to get 100 people to review it.
Oh my god, yeah.
Get 100 set of eyes on it to review it, because it's not going to cost much. I mean, I use $6.99 in my example for a reason. Like the game is going to be $7.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's not going to be like a $60 game, and a lot of that has to do with, I looked at a lot of other quote unquote indie games on Steam and what they charged, and said, okay, if I'm going to charge like $29.99, is it similar to these caliber of games?
Oh, nice. Okay.
And in my mind, like, maybe not, but I figure, by making a cheaper game from a cost standpoint, but not necessarily from a production standpoint, I think has a lot of value in it.
Yeah, definitely. I just want to jump back into the wish list part of the game. So you mentioned you need to have it on the top of that list and everything. I've seen a game where I was searching it on Steam, like the full name, and I think it would be like the 20th game in the search. Like, it's crazy how the logistic of Steam happens, but yeah, the more views is on that page, the better it has a chance to go on the top of that search list. So just want to mention to the chat that it's very important to put a lot of views in the game on Steam, and that's why you see a lot of developers saying, hey, wishlist my game, wishlist my game, because it actually really, really matters. It actually does a big impact upon releasing the game. So just wanted to give a small small thought on that.
No, for sure.
So the next 3 questions are already answered. So there's going to be a demo of Forsaken Fortress. We have you've given an estimated date. You've given us the price range of the game. So next up is so do you have an estimated date on when we can expect the full game? Even like an estimated year or anything?
I mean, realistically, I'm still shooting for. I know I originally quoted like March of this year, right? Which was like late Q1, early Q2, and I'm honestly still sticking to that.
Oh my
gosh. The game, there will be a playable version of the game by like, end of March. Like it's going to be a playable, not the demo, like a playable version. Now, the game may continue to evolve from that point, much like a lot of other developers do. Like Gem got his game out and then like continued to add onto it a little bit and refine it. So there will be a playable version of the game. I'm still sticking to that that March timeframe. And where I'm at now, I think it's doable.
So does that mean that you might release your game in early access?
Yes, it probably definitely will be released in early access.
Cool.
And then I would envision the quote unquote final portion of the game would probably be 3 to 4 months after early access.
Okay.
I would anticipate.
Do you think that you might change the price of your game after it comes out of early access?
I don't believe so. I don't see a reason to, because to be honest, I mean, in an era of 60, 70, insert astronomical number here, AAA games, I think a quality indie game at $7 is a great price point.
Yeah. But you never know, if it's successful, if it goes well, why not, right? If you can get some more
I mean, if
income.
you could.
Yeah, for sure. CGTV has an interesting question here. He's asking, how many Mountain Dews does it take to make a game? I'm not sure about Mountain Dews, but you do have, you're drinking something very energetic at the moment. So.
Not a sponsor, but it takes a lot of coffee. It takes a lot of late nights and a lot of, I don't have much hair, so I don't have to worry about losing it. But
smart.
There's definitely been some times where I've like rage, shut down the computer, and walked away because I can't figure out why something silly's happening. And I think that was one of my biggest hurdles that I've overcome in working on the game, is that you're your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
Because there's no one else to keep you focused. There's no one else to keep the scope confined, so like, oh, what if I try this? And then you go off on this rabbit hole.
Oh my gosh.
And and you waste 3 days and you're like, oh, I'm never getting that time back. What really helped me was sitting down, not having the game engine open, having a Word doc and writing out the story and writing out each side quest and writing out like in words in my mind what the world looked like. So this village is located in the southeast corner and this is the type of people that live there. And south of that is village X and east of that is this one, and having that all written down. So when I start to kind of drift off the path, I can pull up that document and just look at it and be like, okay, cool. No, like, whatever, these people live over here and I can work on that particular thing. And it really helped narrow it in and kind of keep me on task for sure. I
like that. And an advice that I can say as a developer is that there's always a way. If you want to do something there, if you can't do it straight, there's a workaround. If you want to make that sword slash a certain way with a certain animation, there's always a way to do it. It's just, you just have, if it doesn't work the proper way, you have to do a workaround. There's always like a way. I repeated myself like 3 times, but it's just something. Nothing is impossible, So
for sure.
So yeah, it's awesome. So here I'm asking, what platforms are you looking to release Forsaken Fortress on? So we know it's going to come on Steam, on PC. Is there any chances, if it's more successful or anything, is there any chances that it would come on other platforms?
So there could be, there's cost associated with that. So, that'll depend on all of the success of the game and, the potential partnership that could emerge, with the publisher type situation, because like releasing a physical game is costly. Heck, even releasing in digital format on some of these platforms can be very restrictive and costly. So a lot of that will depend on the success of the game. I am looking to make it Steam Deck compatible, so that is something that I'll be looking into. I'm going to check all the boxes and do all the appropriate things to make it where if GFN wanted to pick it up, that they could.
Ooh.
Because that's just integrating some performance stuff and checking the little box and making sure you meet all their guidelines. And then if the game does well, who knows? Maybe they'll pick it up, maybe they won't. But I'm going to do everything on my end that I have to do. And then as far as other platforms, we'll see what the future holds. I mean, I'm not opposed to it. I just know based on like my research and stuff, it can get costly quick.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got a couple $1,000 already invested into the project. So
yeah, I can imagine, man. So I really don't have a good graphics card on my computer. I know the game will run, not too good, and it's not because of your game. It's just because of my graphics card. So I think I'll need to invest on a Steam Deck. I think because all of these games are coming out, and I just I want to play them optimally. So definitely something that I'm considering for sure.
for sure.
So you've mentioned about an indie game, something Tree, not too long ago. Can you talk a little bit about that one? Just promote a little bit of the indie game scene. What is this game about?
It's called The Last Tree. It's made by a developer, David. I always pronounce his last name wrong, but I think it's David Wheely. And basically it's opposing stories. So you play a fox kind of looking for their family, so you're kind of journeying around as this fox, but then there's also an opposing juxtaposition story of a kid reconnecting with their dad. And it's kind of how those two stories kind of collide and the similarities between those stories. It is very kind of explorative, travel around the world and kind of venture through the world, finding different pieces and parts of the story to kind of help move the story along and get more information and things like that. But I just thought it was really cool that a single person made it. It got picked up by publishers. I mean, it is the game that allowed him to go become a full-time game dev, a full-time indie game dev.
The dream.
He worked at Void VR, on like Star Wars VR games. So he's like in the game environment, as a career. But it's the game that allowed him to walk away from all that and be an indie game dev. So his story I find really interesting. And then also, the game I found very interesting because it was written with like no code type tools, so like visual scripting type tools, so it wasn't when he developed the game, it wasn't necessarily the most elegant, but it worked.
Nice.
And no one sees, once your game's live, no one sees that like, oh, you used visual scripting and you didn't write each line of C#, by hand or whatever. No one sees that. No one cares.
No.
And then same thing. He used some free assets in the game that he retextured. I know his player controller was one of the player controllers that's out there for like free that he modified and things like that. So there was a lot of interesting tricks of the trade per se that he did to kind of get his game out there. And his game went from concept to being published on Steam in 18 months.
That's amazing. I can't believe how quick that happened, It's crazy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I'm hoping the same success to you for sure.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, exactly. So guys, I'm almost done here. If you guys have any questions to Joe, now's the time. We're gonna open the questions in chat.
Before we get into questions for chat, could I share my screen?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Definitely.
Excellent. Let me give this a go here.
And then I have one last question, and it's funny because it's a question that I added for every developers because of you. So it's going to be interesting to see what you have to say about it.
All right. So I think you should be able to see my screen share.
Yes. Let me try that. Does that work? Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Got it.
Excellent. So bear with me momentarily.
Bear with me. Also, I'll zoom it in.
So this is the Unity game engine. For anyone that doesn't know, it is free. You can download it to your computer. And
Ooh.
this is the game.
Oh my gosh. It looks. What kind of graphics card are you running? This looks super good.
I have a 3050 in my computer.
Mhm.
However, this is using Unity's what they call HD render pipeline. So it's the same pipeline that they would use for like AAA games.
Oh wow.
And I did that intentionally. That way, I could start with the highest quality, and if someone has to bring down the quality, because of their graphics card, they could do so.
Ah, very cool. Oh
But
man,
yeah,
yeah, this looks amazing. I love the reflection. It's really good looking.
so this is what the world looks like. The houses have interiors. There's dynamic weather, which probably may or may not happen as we're running
We'll
around
wait
here.
until it happens. No, just kidding. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah,
So
it looks way better on my screen. I think the resolution is not as good what we're seeing, but it really looks good here.
yeah, probably. Streaming a game engine um, via YouTube doesn't help.
Yeah.
You know, so
Exactly. Exactly. So my last question, like I mentioned, it's a question that I've added because of you, and it is, if you would give one advice to a developer who just started, what would it be?
be.
Haha, I tricked you because it's always this question you ask.
Yeah,
I'm like,
I would say, to be honest, I would say have a clear vision. Like writing that document, it
yeah.
doesn't have to be in the traditional sense, a game design document, right? Because like people with a traditional game design background, like that's what they're going to default to. But like you don't know what you don't know. And me
Mhm.
not having a game design background, I know what one looks like. You can Google, templates and things, and I get it. But for me, it was just as simple as like having a Word doc and write, here's kind of the character's backstory, and then okay, cool, what's the character going to do? Well, they're going to bump into, maybe it's a shopkeep named Ray that's sleeping, and they're going to do whatever and go on whatever, whatever venture they go on for the shopkeep Ray to get, a better sword than the wooden sword they start out with. It could be something
Yeah.
that simple. And then what really, really, really helped me was just writing out in words what the world looks like.
Hmm.
The main city of XYZ is located here. East of that is thing X, south of that. So like you could get it from, whatever you had envisioned in your mind to where you could almost like draw it on a napkin. So then when it came to like building the world in the game engine, it's really easy to say, okay, cool. Like there's going to be mountains here and a lake here and a river there, and it starts coming together pretty quick. And then all like the polishy, dynamic sound and environment and lighting and all that jazz, will come together over time.
Nice. It's an advice that I've seen coming many times. They say that you have to have direction. That's another
Mm-hmm.
word to it, because if you don't have direction, and it's funny, you mentioned the exact same thing. You just start going around on something that's totally different. You start getting a lot of ideas about other things, and you drift, and you don't focus on your on the initial idea and stuff like that. So
Sure.
it's definitely, I think if someone would ask me, that's the advice I'd give them, because I see it return many times. So that's really good to know. Um, all right, guys. So here we are. This was our interview with It's Just Joe, who is creating Forsaken Fortress. I still can't believe, like, it's a quality game. I'm really looking forward to give it a try. So Joe, before we end this, do you have anything you would like to say before we end it?
No, I really would just like to shout out everybody that supported the game so far, whether it's having me like on y'all's shows. I appreciate Ninja Guy having me on today for sure. I know I spoke with John in the past. I've been on Rock Players and did an interview with Purple, and like the community has been great, kind of showing the support and interest for the game. So like really big shout out to everybody, for that. Because like I said, at the end of the day, for me, that's what it's all about. If you want to make NPCs for my game, please do reach out. As long as you can install a Steam app on your computer, it doesn't have to be like super crazy, ultra fancy. As long as you can run a Steam game at the low level, you should be able to run the character creator, and you could build some NPCs and get them my way. Yeah, really just big shout out to the community. Thanks for all the love and support, and really looking forward to getting this out there for y'all to check out.
Yeah, and if you build NPCs, not only will you have fun, but you will save time to Joe on creating his game. So yeah, definitely
Yeah,
give that a try. All
for
right,
sure.
guys. Thank you so much for coming in. Really appreciate it for Joe to coming in, taking his time here to do the interview. And keep a lookout because we'll do some more in the other weeks coming. Thank you very much and have a good one, guys. Bye.
Here.